All right, so everybody, welcome. We have with us two and a bonus third amazing guest. Sen, why don't you introduce our guests to our viewers?
Oh, hey, sure. With us tonight on the show, we have the wonderful, the talented Goddard family. The whole family is here with us tonight. We have Maggie, we have Mandy, and we have Jordan. Guess who is who? That's the question. Because you know how we usually know who they are is they wear shirts with their names on it, right? So
That's true.
today they're not wearing their name shirts, which is kind of disappointing. Got to say that I am sort of disappointed in you today, but that's okay. You're here and you're ready to participate, and that's all that really matters. So if you don't know Jordan and Mandy's work, they started with a Kickstarter. How many years ago was that, Jordan?
About 3.5 years ago.
3.5 years ago, and it was a card game
Yep.
about prepping for disaster.
Yeah. It was called. Go ahead.
No, you can go ahead.
This is called Collapse, and it was a doomsday prepper that started as a design exercise and turned into, a Kickstarter that raised enough money to kind of get us going. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. And from there, you had your first game published by another publisher, and what was that?
Well, that would be Lotus.
Yeah.
Published by Renegade.
Yeah, and it
one came out in 2016.
Mm-hmm. And that game as a force to be reckoned with. So I think we first met. Did we first meet at Origin?
I think we first met on the Meeple Syrup show, believe it or not, because you judged the contest we ran.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so we first met on the Meeple Syrup show, and then we physically met, I think, at Gen Con, actually, then. Yeah. I don't know if it was I don't think it was at Origins then. I think it was at Gen Con. Because you guys are from that area, right? So that's a good place to meet you, where you actually live. And that was the year that I think we play tested a whole lot of Lotus.
Yeah.
Right? And we helped.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bloom. We even had matching shirts. They didn't have our names on them.
But they had flowers, right? Or bloom. Yeah. They had bloom.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I always like the shirts.
I wasn't a fan of the shirts at first, but Jordan pushed me to do matching shirts, and it actually worked out great. Because everyone would ask, what's that about? What's your shirt mean? Yeah. And then it started every conversation we had. So
the shirts have a funny life of their own, actually.
Oh, yeah?
So the shirts started as so I had a band in college called Jordan and the Four Jordans, and we all wore black shirts with the white word Jordan on it.
Okay.
So yeah. Then when I started dating and soon, spoiler alert, married Mandy, she wanted her own Jordan shirt. And as like
because who wouldn't, right?
We actually did sell them for a while, and then I didn't have any more, I don't think. So whenever we started designing games together, I told her I'd make her own Mandy shirt. So that's where the Jordan and Mandy shirts came from.
Right.
But then we also had the Bloom shirts as well.
Yeah.
Very nice. That is a good story. What kind of band was it? Was it like a rock band or?
I don't like to talk about my band. Sen. We played a lot of covers, and we didn't have a lot of shows. I'm not gonna lie. It didn't go well.
That's okay. So next Gen Con, Jordan and the Four Jordans or Five Jordans. I don't know what you guys are called anymore. Are you getting back together? Are you going on the road? What's going to happen?
I think that is where it needs to be, and that's put away.
That ship has sailed?
That ship has sailed.
Okay, so we're going to focus on board games. So let's do that. One of the most striking things about Lotus is the visual appeal on the table. I hope that other people think so as well, but for me, that was the kind of hook. Is that you're actually playing your cards, pretty flowers on the table, flying insects from flower to flower. And then after you took a pic, like if you looked above the table and took a picture of it, it would tell a beautiful story. And for me, that was the key point of Lotus, is that it was very visually appealing. Do you think that factored into Renegade signing it?
Probably. We did take the time to get full art done to visualize how the flowers would appear when you actually build them on the tables. We took that extra step and did that before we even started pitching to publishers, because we wanted to make sure that visually it made sense, because that's such a big part of the mechanic, is being able to see on the table how close you are to completing each flower. So, I mean, I would think it probably did play into, people's interest in the game at the early stages.
Yeah, I would say, so we started visualizing Lotus with, the concept was, happen to have some cards, prototype right here. We were looking at like how you held cards in your hand. And we thought, well, wouldn't it be like, gin rummy style or whatever, wouldn't it be neat when you played them down if they built an image, like this? So we started with that idea of visually tying in set collection with kind of like an analog timer, right? So as you lay cards out, you can visually tell how close that set is to being completed by how they line up and how they form a circle. But at first, that game was actually, you were building peacock plumage instead.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that totally makes sense. I see it. Yeah, like a fan of the tail.
Yeah, and then it became a game of you were building gears. So all four players sat on the four sides of Big Ben, and we were each repairing a side of Big Ben, forming gear ratios to complete goals. And then we thought it just felt so natural to make it flowers that we went that direction. And then it became a challenge of, can we make a game so pretty that you don't want to clean it up, and so that was kind of the goal there. And I think the visual piece probably markets itself maybe a little bit on the table, potentially, hopefully.
Maggie's going for your pen.
And now, I bet it's going to go in her mouth when she gets it.
Probably will. That's the stage she's at. Yeah, so tell us what's happening now. What's the next big step for the Mandy and Jordan team, and Maggie? Games-wise, anyways.
That's always a challenging question to answer, right? Because you can share so much, but you can't share everything yet. So I can tell you there's two things that are scheduled to come out in 2018.
Okay, good.
And I think you'll like them both. Yes.
I know I'll like them both. Maggie's gonna like them both.
I can so I'll share with you one of them. So we tried really hard, and it's hard because there's thousands of games released every year. How do we create something that's new and not an iteration of what's there already? So we tried to do that in a few different things. One of them is a 2-player asymmetrical roll and write deduction game.
Cool.
That's a lot of things to put into one. But it's like the concept is you each I don't know how much I can say. You have something that keeps your page a little bit secret, and you're each moving around and trying to deduce what the other one's doing. One of you is trying to catch the other one in an act. So it's a 2-player asymmetrical kind of roll and write feel. It's kind of neat and has some cool new components that we don't really see out there. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it was a very different design experience trying to come up with being asymmetrical. We had to kind of come up with 2 different games and make them work together, which was a different process. And it took a lot of spreadsheets and a lot of trial and error to kind of get things to balance and work and fit in the size of the page that we wanted it to fit in as well, because we wanted it to be something you can conceal and keep hidden and secret for yourself. So we had some constraints that were different that I don't feel like we've ever had to kind of deal with before, but it was really at the end.
Ton of fun.
It was hard, but we kind of got through some of the challenges, and in the end it ended up being really pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. And then I hear you have something else coming, right?
Yes. So we've got something else. Again, I can't talk a ton about it. I can tell you that it uses cards in a really unique way, similar to like Flores uses cards in a unique way. This uses cards in 2 different unique ways that I think are pretty cool, and it's really plays into its theme really well. This I can't share a ton. Think of it's got some dual use components that are kind of neat that we've not seen, and it's one of those things that's been about a year in the works from just a design perspective. We took it to a couple of Unpub and some other stuff, and it got a good reception, and it's kind of been signed, and it's working its way through art. And I wish I could tell you more.
Oh well, we'll find out soon enough, I'm sure. That's really good. Jesse, do you have any questions for our guests? Jesse, your mic's not on.
Right. Sorry. I'm bad at that. One day I'll learn. So I'll pass one up that just came in through the comments. One of our viewers is wondering how you guys got into designing games in the first place.
You want to take that?
So there's 2 answers to that. The first one is my wife and I both really love games, and one night we were sitting around and we decided to try to make our own, and it was the worst thing I'd ever seen, and we decided we could do better than that, and we iterated and got better, and it was just kind of funny. But the real answer that got us into it, I was working at Apple at the time, and a guy I was working with was a doomsday prepper, and we always gave him a hard time about having a bunch of guns and food in his house, and so I made it as a joke, essentially for his birthday. We designed a deck builder about gathering supplies for the end of the world. And then, because I don't know when jokes are supposed to stop, I hired an artist and decided to learn InDesign. And I'm like, then I can build Flash videos to promote it. And then I was like, before I do it, it raised tens of thousands of dollars on Kickstarter. And I'm like, we should probably send this to backers. So that was kind of fun. And then I don't know, learn how to work with your spouse in a way that you've never done before, and that becomes a nightly routine, and it's a way to spend time together and produce something as a couple, and that's really cool. So we should keep doing it.
Yeah, we had tried a few other business ideas. We really, really wanted something that we could do on the side of our day jobs that we could do together. We started an LLC prior to that and tried some different business ideas, but we were playing games all the time, and so when he wanted to design a game, it finally kind of clicked that we can do something where we can have, it's sort of a side business, but it's fun. We're playing games all the time.
Right.
It doesn't feel like we're running a business. It feels like we're just playing games all the time, and he comes up with ideas, and we kind of try to figure out if we can make it work. And so it's worked out really well that it's a good combination between our passion and what we enjoy doing together, and then a chance to, make some business out of it.
Yeah, it's like we spend time together every night, and at the end of it, we have something to go on the shelf, and that's kind of cool. So
that is really cool.
Quick follow-up from the comments again. Helena Capel's here, and she's asked if you've ever thought about publishing your own games.
Helena, we'd like for you to publish our games.
Who wouldn't, right?
Well, what do you think?
I don't know if we would. I think the benefit we've gained from working with publishers like Renegade and IDW, I think has been really priceless. I appreciate the feedback that we get from working with a partner like that, and the distribution network that we get access to through them. I don't know that we're that interested in taking on some of those roles, but that's just my view.
Yeah, in our current setup, we get to do all of our favorite stuff and none of the stuff we don't like.
Yeah.
So I think there's probably not enough upside for us to do all the stuff that we're bad at, and so no. But Helena, we'll show you stuff all day long.
She says to send her something then.
We can do that.
I have stuff in front of me, Helena. I'm going to put this in the mail.
Not that one.
Not that one.
Speaking of Helena and the games that she makes for families and children, a lot of her games are focused on family. Now that you have, +1 to your group, how is that changing how you think about design? Has it?
The games that are coming out this year, I would say no. They're both a little bit darker themed, actually. Not.
They were started before we had.
Yeah, we probably started before her. But I am working on something that is more geared toward younger kids. It's more of a game/book, like a way to teach kids to read while playing a game. So that's something that I kind of started, and we're working on that together. So that's definitely one where it'll help to, once we actually have children of reading age, it'll help to have some playtesters at home that we can use for that. But
if we can get a reading this year, it's a really good game.
Then it's great.
Yeah, it's a really, really good game. We have some other some questions. Josh Reed was asking, is there any Jordan and the Four Jordans music online?
No comment.
No comment?
It's so unfortunate because I feel like he's good enough with computers to find it. So I feel like I should just come clean. Probably. If you can find it, Josh, I'm going to be really proud of you.
Okay. We have some other questions from the audience. Okay, Mason Wright says, I shouldn't read this one. He says, first off, wow, what an honor, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you all directly. Mason says this. Dealing with fame isn't always easy. I know the struggle of making a quick run to the supermarket for milk without being bombarded by fans. How do both of you deal with the excitement and stress that comes with your success?
Most people that recognize me from my Jordan and the Four Jordan days.
Really?
No, I hope not. So I think Mason's question is veiled in sarcasm, but I do. But I tell you what's wonderful is when we go to like conventions or stuff, and people like we have enough. We met enough people to where you can walk into any room and know somebody, and it makes that community feel so much smaller. You go to Gen Con, what are there, 80,000 people? You walk into that, and every time you round a corner, I run into somebody I know. Or Andy sees somebody she knows. They
just think that they know you because your name is on your shirt.
Oh yeah, that could be it. But no, you end up running into you guys or any other group of people. So I would say it's wonderful to be able to go anywhere in the country to one of those conventions and know people and run into people like yourself and others like to spend time with. So
excellent. I just read that because I thought it was a funny question.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming Mason is a friend, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe not anymore. But...
Maybe not anymore. Okay. Well, he's been blocked. So let's talk about process. How you do this. This is like the hour or two that you guys spend together at the end of the day when the baby's asleep and you want to do something together. Board game design is what it is. How do you divide up stuff between Jordan and Mandy? Does Jordan do one thing? Does Mandy do another thing? Are there solo projects that one of you says, oh, I'm really interested in this, and you say, and the other person says, well, I'm not, so you go do that by yourself? How does it work? How do you delegate?
I would say our roles are pretty distinct, I think. I feel like Jordan does the really heavy lifting on coming up with the ideas to begin with. Usually the unique mechanics and, the core game is something that he brings to me. And then my role is a lot more about balance. So if there's anything where, we're having to make sure the math works out or there's, anything that has to do with balancing or making sure the game is sound, that kind of falls more on me. And I always write the rule book. So that's my way of sort of checking that we haven't missed anything and that the game's going to work. So he's more creative and I'm more logical.
And does that play to your strengths individually, you think?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
very
absolutely.
Much. Yeah. I would say we have a couple of things we do a lot. And that is so anytime you work on a project for a long period of time, you get stuck. You get stuck on, one way of thinking, or you can't come up with the next leap creatively that you need. Mm-hmm. And so a tool that we use for that is to have a bad brainstorming session where the goal is to come up with the worst ideas we possibly can. And there's something freeing about making yourself come up with something that's bad, and then you start laughing at those bad ideas, and you go, well, I guess that one's actually not so bad. And then you iterate off of it, and you kind of get your momentum back. So that's kind of a common best practice we use a lot. The other thing we do often is when we come to a difficult problem to solve, we will go into separate rooms, solve that problem independently, and come back and then play each other's ideas, and then pick one and go from it. Because sometimes just working together, you get too much, you start thinking in the channel too much. And by breaking off and making ourselves come up with something independent, we come up with something that's different, unique, or, So
that's really interesting. I like that, yeah.
Do those things a lot. I don't know if that answers your question, but...
No, it totally does. Actually, they're not even my questions. They're Stephen Sauer's questions. I should give credit where it's due. He also asks, how do you deal with moments where you disagree and want to take the game in different directions, if that ever happens?
Happens all the time.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of how we deal with it. We say, okay, fine, you go in your direction, I'll go in my direction, and then we get back together. And it's usually pretty clear which one is going to be better or which one will be a direction that's going to work for us once we've played it. So right. I might be completely against an idea he has. I might say, that's not going to work with this theme. That's totally wrong. I hate that. Mm-hmm. And then we'll sit down and we'll play it and realize, well, if you just change the name of it, it fits the theme great and it works perfectly. So sometimes I have to kind of be a little more open-minded when I originally don't like an idea. But yeah, we'll kind of split up, come up with it, and then when we play both of them, essentially one of them will work better than the other, or we'll take pieces of each and end up combining it into a game that does work.
Yeah, I would add to that, be a healthy skeptic of your own ideas, because if you come to the table, so I'm very fortunate to have a spouse that has a healthy respect for logic, and so if I make a good case for something and she says that's a bad idea, it wasn't a very good case, and so I think our ideas get stronger by being tough on each other. And you can go ahead and pull that out. So it ends up being really obvious which is the right idea and which is not. Sorry, my child is playing with an electrical cord. I'm gonna take it away.
Let's not have that happen alive. And I think that, they're really good and solid. That's solid advice for co-designing in general. And I mean, Jesse and I aren't even married, and that's the way we work. We'll kind of go off on our own little tangents, and we'll come back and either mash them together or eliminate one. And it's always like the table doesn't lie, right? When you put the game on the table and you play it, it's like, I just wasted 2 hours thinking of that and making it because your way's better. And that's okay. Yep. That's what we're there for, is to actually prove that something is good and prove that something isn't as good as the other thing and work from there. Other questions that Stephen Sauer has, he asks, he's got 4 of them, I know. He said, question, why are you both so nice and so much fun to hang around with?
Here's how I would answer that. I have a definitive answer. Stephen, we only run into you at game conventions. That means there's games. So we're pleasant. If you ran into us at a push-up convention, we would be miserable to hang around.
Push-up con.
Yeah, no. Well, it helps that he and his wife and everyone he hangs around with is so pleasant.
It's true. We're pretty cool people. And have things changed with designing games since you've had the glorious, wonderful Miss Maggie?
Much harder to find time. I mean, that's an obvious, right? It's hard to find time where we're both available and she's not crying or something and needs our attention. So we have to be a little bit more creative about when we can work together. We actually do a lot of game design in the car.
Oh, really?
Which is probably weird, but we drive down to see his family in Tennessee occasionally, and that's a 5 or 6 hour drive. And sometimes we'll spend a big portion of it actually just talking through the rules of a game, and I'll be writing on my phone all the notes of how, what's a turn look like, and okay, well, what happens in this scenario?
Oh, we've done full play tests in the car.
Verbally played games.
Okay, I just drew 2 cards, and then we'll try to randomize what they were. Here's what I'm thinking through on that turn. What would you do in response to that? Well, 6 hours. You can get a lot of.
That's a long time.
Good work.
Where in Tennessee are you? Yeah, it is. Where in Tennessee are you from, Jordan?
About an hour south of Nashville.
Okay.
Right around there.
So would you recommend that I go to Gatlinburg?
For what? For sushi? No. For
No,
mountains?
not for sushi. I have a timeshare, and one of the places that is often booked up is Gatlinburg, and I have a no blockout timeshare option for this one trip that I get to go on a year. That I can't be blocked out of going there, and usually it's always blocked. So should I go?
It is. So I've been to your neck of the woods. It is as pretty, but with hills and warm temperatures.
Oh, okay. Well, then maybe yes.
It's actually really pleasant. You'll love Gatlinburg.
That's super nice. So maybe we'll go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really nice.
So getting back on topic, given
that thing.
Wait, does Sen need any more travel advice before we move on?
It's okay.
So, one thing that we like to do on the show now these days is we like to do these segments, which are little events that we try to subject as many of our guests to as possible over time. And so, pulling the segment from a hat, we've decided that today you guys are going to be doing batting practice, which I think goes really well with your previous statement that you struggle to find time to do some design. So, we've carved out 5-10 minutes for you right now to do some design.
We're so thoughtful.
We're so thoughtful.
Wow.
Yeah, live. So the way batting practice works is we get a random design direction generated from some website I pull off the internet or a deck of unpub cards that I don't have handy. I've got one pulled up right now. I'm going to put it up in the air for you guys, and then you'll chew on it a bit and see if you can pitch a game back to us that meets those criteria. All right?
Okay. Hit me.
All right. So we are looking for a game that has the mechanics of secret unit deployment, the theme of cyberpunk soccer, with a victory condition based on being the most sneaky, that ideally is language independent.
Why wouldn't it be?
Why wouldn't
Right?
So,
I told you he comes up with all the ideas, right?
right.
Cyberpunk soccer that's language independent with secret unit deployment.
And is primarily, the goal is to be the most sneaky.
Wow. Okay.
That kind of fits together well.
Sure. Yeah. Probably about to say, Sam.
Well, I don't know what you're going to say, but you say what you're going to say, and then I'm going to write some stuff down on paper.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, so I think you need a hook because if you're going to get me to do and buy all of those things. So first of all, I'll just tell you, I'm not a big fan of soccer or football or baseball. Well, baseball can get me sometimes. Like sports-based games, they don't hook me as much. So let's see.
Maybe it should be robots playing the sports, but you don't know what movement they're making because they're sneaky. They're sneaky, right? So they're trying to get into the goal, but maybe you don't know which goal. Maybe there's not just 2. Maybe there's 15 goals around.
Oh.
And depending on what your secret goal is, you're going to go in that direction.
Okay. I could probably poke holes in that if I had half a second.
What do you think, Maggie?
Let's see.
Baby robot?
Maybe? No.
Well, if you're stuck, you could use one of your own strategies and just start coming up with bad ideas.
You're right. I think Mandy just did.
did.
So that's great. I think so. So the cyberpunk theme in general wants me to like everything feels modular in that world, or the one of the things I like about cyberpunk is that it feels like it's all taken from something else anyway. Like the cog, that runs the gear in your hat or whatever it is, feels like it came from something else anyway. So I feel like there'd be something modular to it. She doesn't like it. Sen, where are your?
Well, I was just writing down the words. So, cyberpunk soccer. So I'm thinking of something that might be similar to, baseball highlights, which is cyborgs and humans playing baseball. But cyborg soccer or cybernetic soccer, cyberpunk soccer, we'd have to have people with like data jacks and
I want to see hacking other players.
Oh yeah, hacking other players so that they're maybe taking dives. I don't know, or not taking dives. Secret unit deployment. I think that works really well with the sneaky part. So maybe it's something where you have a wall in between you and your other player, you set up your stuff, then you reveal, and then you can play from there. I don't know.
Or it plays out like a football playbook where you set it up, and then when you pull off the screen, it just plays out what you've set up.
That could be cool. I think that's kind of neat. Then language independent. Obviously, we're going for a kind of Roll for the Galaxy level of iconography there, where things are just icons. So I can see that being part of it. I'm wondering if I like the playbook idea though, because that really makes sense. When you draw the playbook on the screen, flip it over, and then compare notes, there'd have to be some limitation to what you could and couldn't do, and then maybe some cybernetic hacking that you could do to maybe even change how your opponent's units are reacting to their commands. I don't know. What do you think? It's kind of like a programming game, right?
Yeah. So I'm picturing so we're each hackers sitting in the stands trying to take over the game we're watching. And maybe
that's awesome. Yeah.
Take over the scoreboard as well, and you take over the refs, and there's different things you can manipulate. But you're trying to manipulate the outcome of the game essentially. So you're playing kind of a programming game essentially that lets you interfere with maybe there's a play that's going to happen and you can interfere with that, and you're manipulating the way the game plays out. But I don't know. That would probably be a game we would be less likely to design for so many reasons. But
I like the idea that you had there. The sneakiness part, like I could say I'm doing an action and I put a card face down, and you have to decide whether or not you want to, intercept that or not, or let it go through. Right. So almost a kind of like Sheriff of Nottingham, excuse me, but for commands that will eventually get you points as opposed to pure points and things like that, or set collection. All right. Yeah. That was fun.
This is cool.
That's kind of cool.
We've got one backer on Kickstarter. Josh Reed has promised to back this one when it gets there, so that's a success.
Hey, we'll take it.
Good job. We do have another user question here. Excuse me. And I'm going to give this one to Maggie. No, not to Maggie. Sorry, to Mandy.
You can give Maggie. Just let her pass.
She'd probably eat it. Andrew Duria asks, what are your tips on balance? How much math do you do versus playtesting? What do you think there, man?
I definitely do some math first because I want to make sure that things make sense logically to me. So I always have some kind of spreadsheet, and it'll have card counts and, probabilities. If it's that kind of a game, what's the probability? If it's Lotus, what's the probability I might get a 7 flower or a 3 flower? That kind of thing. I'll always have some math done before we hit the table for playtesting. But I would say playtesting would probably be where we get the best insights. Because that's the real scenario. I'm not ready to change the thing so that it just feels right. But it's both.
Yeah, if you look at kind of what we designed, we designed more closed system games than open world sandboxy games. Our games tend to be sorry, our baby. But so, we end up kind of designing around the edges. A lot of playtesting, honestly. And we're not designing casino games, so the math doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to reward the things you want to reward, and it has to be fun where it needs to be fun. And so, I don't think we spend as much time in Excel as maybe some people do. We spend a lot of time at a local game shop.
More time playtesting, yeah.
For sure.
Okay, great. I know that one of the things that I took away from you guys was going big in balance. That I would say, instead of +1 or -1, I used to say +1 or +3 or -3. And you said, no, Sen, go +5 or -5. Is that still something that you use as a rule when you're balancing? Is it go big or go home?
Yeah, I can think of a really specific argument we had. So we were in an airport in Phoenix, Arizona one day, and we're sitting here arguing over butterfly power values, doing the same thing you're saying now. Do we need to tweak it a little bit or tweak it a lot and see if it makes a big difference? because ultimately, if you tweak things big, then you can see, okay, that's either going to work or not work, and then you see the effect it has on the total game. So we're sitting there in an airport. I mean, our voices are raised, yelling. I don't remember what the phrase was.
I think I said the butterflies need more power.
I was like, if you give them too much power. And these poor people standing in the airport seeing this couple like engaged in an argument over butterflies, I feel like would have probably been fun to watch. But yeah, we tend to do big tweaks, because if you tweak something big, you can see its immediate effect. Keep everything else constant, and then make that thing worth 10 points instead of 1. And then, okay, that made a big difference. Now let's 4, 3, and then you get somewhere right. But you don't know until you double it or more. So, yeah.
Okay, good. Do you still hear an echo, Jesse? Am I still echoing?
Not to me.
Okay, Jesse, I don't hear you at all because you've muted yourself again. But...
Sorry, it's because I'm sick. I don't want to be like coughing into the mic every once in a while.
I do it all the time. Don't worry about it.
There's enough coughing on this show for the two of us.
Right.
Yeah, but you're all good.
Okay, thank you. I just switched cameras because my phone that we originally dialed in on was dying. Because I'm the kind of person that lives at, 10% battery and doesn't give a flying whatever about it. So Sir Bob is asking us, tell us about your experience with publishing Lotus, Jordan and Mandy, and Maggie. How long did it take you to get to the right publisher? And did you think you would self-publish? How many months did you show the game to the public? And were you ever doubtful? So he kind of wants the story of Lotus. So we went through this a little bit, but can you just elucidate us a little bit more?
Sure.
So first of all, I would have asked you to define elucidate, but since you just popped out, I can't see you anymore. I guess I have to just assume that means explain.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, maybe explain fancifully.
We elucidated everything while you were gone. Sorry, you missed it.
Oh, I missed it. So it wasn't much.
You want to jump in?
I mean, I can share kind of the timeline for Lotus. You can jump in with more color probably, but we started working on Lotus probably a year and a half before we showed it to anybody. But it was just sort of on and off. It was the same year that we were working on Collapse, so in between we'd kind of jump back over and work on what was then called Bloom. So yeah, about a year and a half after, it was just the two of us working on it, that's when we felt like we were ready and we had something that we could take to start showing to publishers. So that would have taken us to about June of 2015, and that's when we took it to Origins. So the first time we had our matching Bloom shirts would have been Origins that year. And we had a ton of people play tests, and I think you were probably involved in that. That was when we got the most feedback, and we're still kind of tweaking the final rules that summer. And then it was Gen Con that year that we signed with the publisher.
Yeah, and so when we did what I would encourage anyone to do, which is go to the publisher speed dating event.
At Gen Con.
Yeah, and we stood there and pitched. If that did nothing else, it made us refine our pitch and have a really great, strong, short pitch. And then we got several people kind of interested, and we had met with a few people who were ready to give us a contract for it, but we met Scott Gata from Renegade, and he's just one of those people that when you meet him, you just know he's the guy you want to work with. And, he's just a really outstanding individual, had a clear plan for what he wanted to do with it, and we knew we wanted to work with him, and so that's what we did. And we, had to tell people no, and but it ended up being the best decision we could have made. They have a wonderful team, and it just was perfect.
Excellent. We have one more question here from Andrew again. Yeah, he said, first of all, he's a big fan of Lotus, and he said it helped get his daughter into gaming, so he thanks you for that. And then he asks, how did you get into designing games? We already talked about that a little bit, but...
A little. I think it really started from us playing so many games, and I would say that even started from my brother, actually. So my brother kind of introduced us to all the first games that we got into, like the Ticket to Rides and Settlers of Catan and Small World and I don't know what else, but he kind of introduced us to a lot of those. So we found ourselves playing games together all the time. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we're kind of looking for a way to start a business together. So it kind of happened naturally when he started coming up with ideas.
Right. But then so my other answer to that would be, because we just designed a game. Like like people ask, how do you get into it? Well, 50 nights in a row or whatever it is, pick a period of time. Just go do it. Make something terrible and then make something less terrible and then make something, that has a chance. And because the first thing you make is going to be terrible. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
And so, how do you get into running? Well, go outside and run. How do you get into game design? Go make something. Get a piece of paper and a pencil and go do it.
Yeah. But it helps to play a lot of games because you kind of see what's out there and it gives you creative sort of idea. It gives you a boost. Right. Something to start from. I don't think had we not been playing so many games, we would have even thought to design one.
Yeah, but and then my last thing I would say is we believe firmly in release early and often and iterate. Show as many people as early as you can in the process. Show them often, and then iterate between those showings. Don't be afraid that your idea is not that great. If you show people, they won't steal it. They're too busy doing other stuff. And so show people without fear and get their feedback. Release early, often, and iterate, and you will have a better chance of having something that people will want to see. And then when you get to the end, you have 1,000 people who've gone with you. Or 100 people who've gone with you and who are excited to tell people they saw something before it was a real thing. So that would be kind of. Mm-hmm. Does that answer his question?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a great answer.
A great answer. So on the topic of you guys loving to play so many games, it seems like a good moment to do our second segment with you guys tonight, which is Board Game Crush. So if you guys could each take a moment to tell us about a game that you have a crush on. This is a game that you love, maybe for irrational reasons. You just absolutely look forward to playing it. And so could you tell us what that game is, a little bit about it, and then a little bit why you think the design makes you love it so much? Like, what about that game keeps making you think about it when you should be thinking about something else?
Oh, okay. This is a great question, and I feel like your segment should have theme music, so maybe we could...
maybe Jordan and the Jordans could make us theme music.
I think we could look into that for you, get the guys back together. And so I think everyone's always a little bit intimidated to say their favorite or their game that they love, or whatever, because there is this kind of culture of like, well, I hope it's cool enough, And I think my crushes are not very cool games, but they're the games I know I would not have designed because my brain doesn't work like that, and I just think they're so cool. So I'm going to say the game I wish I would have designed because I love its simplicity and its closed system is Onitama. I think that is one where it's all the things I can't do, and it's so interesting for its small package, and it's a closed system that's interesting every time you do it. It's a great 2-player game. I think there need to be more of those. And so that's when I'm like, yeah, I have a crush on that because I know I can't design like that, and I wish I could. So, yeah. What is yours? I'm really curious.
Well, for some reason right now I'm just completely obsessed with Near and Far, so I feel like that's got to be mine. And I'm trying to put my finger on what it is about it, but I think that I would never want to have to design Near and Far and come up with a book full of quests and come up with that much. I don't know. It's just different. Yeah, the whole world. You have to develop a whole world, but playing it is amazing because every time you play, it's different. And I think that's why I love it so much. And I keep thinking about what I can do. We play with my brother and my brother's son, who's 14, and the 14-year-old beats us all almost every time we play this game. So it does have me thinking, what's he doing that we're not doing? And, how is he so consistently good at this? that we must be missing something. But it's a ton of fun for us, and I think the replayability is just crazy.
Yeah.
It's different every time you play.
It's funny because you want to gravitate to the stuff you know you couldn't do. I don't know what can I ask? Can I put the question back on you? Like,
sure.
Designer Sen, is there a game that you think, man, I know I couldn't design that, or I like that because it's so different than how my brain works?
So I really for some reason, I value a lot of the old school designers because they're so clean. Like, designs are so clean. For example, like Sid Saxon or Alex Randolph, Leo Colovini. I really love their games for some reason. By today's standards, they're almost like it's just a mechanic. It's not really a game. But for me, they are so pure, and the essence of the game is there that I want to play those types of games more as a designer. So I'll just name my favorite of Sid Saxon's games by far is I'm the Boss. And the reason why is because I'm not great at doing social gaming. I love playing those games, but I'm not good at designing the social part. So I think that's why I like it so much. It incentivizes the right social behaviors. When people jump on each other's bids and each other's deals to say, no, I'm the boss. And then somebody else comes along, well, no, I'm the boss. And you see them cutting that pie up into smaller and smaller chunks. And just the behavior that game incentivizes from a psychology standpoint is amazing. And the design of it is nothing. There's literally nothing to that game design-wise that other than the magic that Sid Saxon found when he said, no, you can play that on the boss card at any time up until they close the deal. You can change that. And that's the magical piece that I probably would have never thought about because I think very logically. I
was not in the room when he came up with that, obviously.
Yes.
But it feels like that could have come out of, no, make that card 5 times more powerful or infinitely powerful, you know? And it turns out you're like, oh, wow, that's better. Yeah, that's a good one.
And it's funny, speaking of near and far and Ryan Lookout, that's exactly the feedback that Ryan gave to, I think, Tim Fowers one day about Tim's game about the airplanes. Do you know the game? The new one? All Aboard or now boarding?
Yeah.
That one. And apparently there was an edge case in the game that was really hilarious when it came up. But Tim was like, no, I want to design that out because I don't want to have to deal with it or whatever. But Ryan said, no, that's the game. That one kind of OP moment, people should be working towards making that happen and feeling really good when that happens. So I think there's something to that kind of design that I just haven't, picked the magic of the social aspects of it yet. So we'll figure it out, though, I think.
Yeah, I almost named Fugitive, and only because we just spent a year designing a deduction game, an asymmetrical deduction game. And the whole time I'm like, we should have just designed Fugitive. It's just good. And it is essentially just a mechanic and figuring things out as you go. But, I think we're drawn to the stuff, for better or worse, we're drawn to the stuff that we don't think we could have come up with. Because it's just fun. Sometimes playing a game is a conversation with the designer. I feel that way when I play video games like John Blow's The Witness or Braid or some of those, you feel like and I feel like when I play another designer's game that I can learn something from them, that's when I really get a crush on it,
Yeah. Oh, Daryl says hi. He's in the feed. He says, say hi to Mandy and Jordan. And he said, did we ask you about designing licensed games?
You haven't asked that, Daryl.
Right.
Daryl knows things.
Yeah, right. And so the idea here, I guess, is that Daryl knows that you can't really spill it. But I'm going to guess that it is the deduction game.
It's a great guess, and who knows if you're right.
Yeah. How was it working for the first time with a license for you guys?
It's a unique challenge. It's equal, and the payoff is worth the challenge, but they're both in equal parts. You get this really cool opportunity to carry, the story of a license forward in a unique way. Sen, you obviously know this, but you also have the responsibility to the fans that have made that license, a part of their life, and have really grown to love that license. And you have a responsibility to make something worthy of all the time and energy they've put into caring for that story. So there's that piece in and of itself. Then there's all the fun regulatory bits of you have this really great idea, you send it off, and then the team that owns the license has every right to tell you no to portions of it, and so and they're protecting their brand, like they own it, that's what they should do, they're caring about their fans. But your goal is to make a game, and their goal is to, make something good for the license. So there is an inherent tension there, and it's, sometimes it yields great games, and sometimes it yields compromises. We were really fortunate that every idea we put forth got accepted, and so we feel really good about what we were able to produce. But there are challenges to be considered when working for a license, for sure.
Josh Reed asks, has a game ever been released similar to something that you're currently working on? And if so, how did you deal with it?
Oh, yep. So, what hasn't happened? Sorry, the baby and my wife have left. But what hasn't happened is we've not been working on something and then somebody took it and beat us to market. What has happened before is we've been working diligently on something, and then someone's like, that's a lot like this one obscure game that got, and you go play it. Oh, that's it. Yep. And then you just have to pivot. The last thing we want to do, the last thing we want to do is do something that's already been done. Not just because it's creatively lazy, but because it doesn't add anything. There's enough board games out there, that we don't need to create what's already been done. And so we've just in those instances, we've completely scrapped the idea, but we've retained what things we thought were fun. So why did we like that part of that game? Because it let me feel more powerful than everybody else at this moment. Cool, carry that over, but carry the feelings and emotions, not the pieces that were already done.
Well, and it's actually part of why we do share early and try to get feedback early on, because a lot of times people that we know, that we share ideas with, will point us to those games that may already exist, and then we can move direction quicker. If we kept it secret and then we thought, oh, it's perfect, it's final, it's ready, and then we started sharing it with people, then we might find out really late in the process that there's already something really similar to what we've come up with. Yeah. So I think that's just a whole other reason why.
Yeah.
Good attitude.
Yeah.
Healthy way to look at it.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, unfortunately, we are coming close to our time together tonight. But just before we go, we have a tradition here on Meeple Syrup Show. We like to ask our guests if they could give one piece of advice to new or even experienced designers. Just one piece of advice to designers that are out there. And you guys have given many great pieces of advice already tonight, but I'll just ask for one more. What piece of advice would you give to a designer?
Okay. Do you have one?
A few come to mind.
Okay. Well, he said one.
I know.
I'll give you one each.
Ah, okay.
There's a compromise.
Let me hold on. You give yours.
I'm gonna give two anyway. And I'm gonna recap two.
That's Maggie's advice.
Yes.
Maggie's advice would be to just play as many games as you possibly can, because I think it goes back to, you're going to learn what you think is fun, and you're going to get great ideas from other games that are out there. But, ultimately you're going to know why you like playing certain games. And if you know why you like playing certain games, I think that will help you design games that you will yourself like to play.
All right. That's Maggie's.
That's Maggie's.
That's kind of a lame one. But maybe Mandy's will be better.
Well, you're so mean. My advice is to share early and often. I think that's good advice. I think that was something that I had to learn, and was very hard for me to learn, because I'm the kind of person who wants to have something perfect and final before even putting a picture of it on, Reddit for feedback. But he wanted to get things out really, really early in the process. We asked for opinions on what to name games on Reddit. We've asked Reddit for opinions on artwork, and we've gone to the public with questions very, very early before, and it was hard for me at first because I don't feel comfortable kind of revealing what we're working on as well as he does. So, but it has always benefited us to get that feedback early.
All right, and my piece of advice would be here's what a lot of people do. They look around and say, "This is what I can do. I can draw, so I'll make a nice art gamer, or whatever it is. I have dice, so I'll make a dice gamer, or whatever it is." They look around about what's easy for them to do, as opposed to looking around and say, "What would be interesting?" Don't look for the things that you can do easily. Look for the things that the market needs, or that people would be passionate about, or that would stir, an interesting question, or you see this a lot in like the Kickstarter world sometimes, where people will make something based on a funny joke or a clever idea they had, and then spend a lot of time trying to get people excited about it, as opposed to spending that same amount of energy finding the things that would be naturally exciting, and putting your time and effort learning how to do those things. And I feel like I'm being vague, and I'm not trying to be, but I just mean go find the wonderful, interesting bits of the world, and then learn how to make those things, as opposed to looking around you and saying, "I'm good at this, I can do this, and maybe I'll convince people to like it." Go find that interesting little piece of social interaction that you want to exploit and create a game around, or this interesting way that things can look when they're presented on a table, or this neat way to use cards or components in a dual manner, and then go make something interesting around that. That's it.
You're funny.
I think Jesse's trying to wrap the show, but his mic is off again. So.
Yep, there we go. Still haven't learned yet. That's one of those magical pieces of the world that I need to learn how to create. It's turning on my mic. Anyway, thank you, Mandy, Jordan, and Maggie for joining us tonight on the Meeple Syrup Show. And thank you, all of our viewers who have caught this live. This and our last 2 episodes will soon be making their way onto YouTube if you didn't catch it live, so you can catch that then. We will be back next week at the same time with new fabulous guests. I would like to say as well...
We probably won't have a baby with us, though.
We probably will not have a baby with us. If there are guests you would like to see us try and get on the show, designers you would like to hear from talking about their experience designing games, let us know. We'll see what we can do. Additionally, if there are topics you would like to see us get a panel or a group of people together about, and hear about and learn about, then let us know. We'll see what we can do. We're looking to continue growing the show and trying new things, so we're always listening. Stay tuned on our page. There's been lots of cool things happening random throughout the week. I think Sen's got a new habit of opening his mail on Mondays live, so you can check in for that. Point new designers to the show's page, and as always, get out there and get making some great games.
All right, guys. Thanks so much.